podcast is powered by PKF. PKF, your trusted advisor in the Hunter for over 45 years. Down to Business acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters this podcast is recorded on.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Down to Business. I'm your host Andrew Beattie. Joining today is Dr. Ravi Stephen. Amazing man. He's owner of the Family Circle Medical Practice here in Newcastle. But look, he's got more qualifications than I can probably read, let alone choose to read. You know, he's a mentor, a husband, a father, a friend to many, and he's got a great backstory that we're going to get a lot out of today. So welcome, Ravi.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Absolute pleasure.
Pleasure coming here.
Mate, I don't want to do any injustice, and, you know, we tend to have had a few walks in over time or run the history. I don't want to do it a disservice, but really tell me where, you know, your background, not from just medical, but upbringing, etc., and how you find yourself all these years later here in downtown Newcastle.
So, I'm from Sri Lanka originally, and my parents were surgeons there, and so it was always a medical upbringing. And a sister who is in Sydney now, but, you know, we grew up in Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka. And then there was, during our childhood days, in our teens, there was ethnic conflict in the country. So most of the time, the schools were closed, kind of thing. So the parents were like, look, if you need to progress in your career or your studies, you need to go. So I was sent to Western Australia Aquinas College to study.
What age was that?
About 14.
So quite young.
14, yeah. And I was in boarding school there and did really well. So got accustomed to moving, starting again, and did miss my parents. But it was a good experience in a different country. Then finished up there. And then still the ethnic conflict was still going on, and I needed to be close to home. So I started doing medical school in India and was there for 5 years, finished up, and then moved to England to train in surgery. And that's where I met my wife as well, who is a veterinary surgeon, and we got engaged and we started training there together. So in England, I finished my surgical training and then got a phone call from my parents, especially my mom, saying, your brother-in-law got knocked down and he's brain dead. And he was leading or the obstetrician at Royal North Shore. So we're like, no kids, you need to move. So we're like, okay. Suddenly we're like, okay, brainstorm, what do we need to do? And then luckily we are financially stable. So we moved across to our first job in Wollongong.
Wollongong, right.
Yeah, just packed everything from England, came across. Australia does not recognize British qualifications.
Is that still the case?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Not even English. And I did English literature in Western Australia at Aquinas. So I had to do an English exam to prove that I could speak the language, and started training again from scratch. And after 5 years of doing registrar training and all that at Wollongong, Campbelltown, John Hunter and all that, got into orthopedics. And I've been in John Hunter for about 11 years in total. Phenomenal place to work, good support and good infrastructure to, you know, service the community. But Newcastle's growing and they can't keep up. But the surgical exposure was phenomenal. And because in England, they followed the old school of training. I had done ENT, breast surgery, GI, upper GI, and general surgery and orthopedics. And then when I came here, it had to be specialized. Did orthopedics here. And then 5 years into orthopedic training, we had our first child. And then the relationship was amazing, but it was like with any doctors in surgical training or any other training specialization, we always put life on hold till you finish the fellowship. Don't recommend that.
Right.
So basically came right up to the fellowship, and the wife went into labor. I went across, I was at Liverpool Hospital then for a year of training. I went across there but not there, because training was the most important thing. And went through the motions, and then it was a struggle at home with the kids, and we start at 7 with surgery, finish at 9, come back, then the exams coming up and all that. And it came to a point, the marriage was almost at breaking point. I would have had the certificate and the qualifications, and I loved the adrenaline rush, but there was a price to pay. So then the bosses pulled me aside and said, look, you need to decide, because you still have time in this. Save the marriage or you run the course. So that's when general practice chose me.
Okay.
Kicking and screaming, I came out and I was like, I really don't want this, but let me give it a go. So from surgical training, I went into general practice. So again, started building from scratch. It's a totally different training environment. So another 4 years into it, just before I did going for the exams, 3 weeks into it, I decided to jump a fence near my house and fracture my ankle. Suddenly the ambulances were called. I was taken to John Hunter, and the bosses were like, whoa, this is really bad. And they operated on it. Then, as usual, I pushed myself, broke the plates too early, and I had to do the exam in a wheelchair. Passed it and did really well. But the wife was like, oh my God, when does this end? But how we look at it now is, a challenge is never put in front of us if we don't have the skills and the apt to overcome it. And that's always been true, even if we don't believe it ourselves. And it's been phenomenal. Like, I wouldn't do it any other way. And then finished general practice, started working in Dora Creek. I did work in Foster as well, and Greta, but at the end worked in Morisset and loved it. Just the drive 1 hour up and down. I used to listen to podcasts that all made it productive. Business owner. Always kept the eye out. And as usual, practices came for sale, went and looked at it, but it didn't resonate with what I wanted. Hunter Street Medical Practice across the road has been there for about 35 years. And the owner is based in Sydney, but he's a doctor who flies in, works and runs off. I had walked through the practice a couple of years prior to that, and it didn't resonate with me. It wasn't the patient avatar I wanted to service. So I walked away. Suddenly I get a phone call saying, are you still interested? I was like, what's going on? And he said, well, I had to close the practice down and fire all the staff because of financial difficulties, and basically ran it to the ground. So I said, leave it with me. As usual, bounced the idea with the wife. And just like, what do you think? I said, let's just go for it. And we did. And at that time, our girls, we had two girls already, and in a better frame of mind. And we took on the challenge. No business background. And even the finances, we had invested in something. We're like, let's just do it. What have we got to lose? And took the step, and we bought the practice with all the debt and no patient base, no staff. I approached the old staff and said, look, I'm the new owner. I'll take on board all the debt, and I'll pay the 3-month salary you all have not been paid prior, and come and try it out. See if, no strings attached. So they came back and they worked for me for the first 6 months or so, 8 months. They did not resonate with, because they still had the old school mentality where they had always been for the last 20, 30 years. Plus even the doctors were accustomed to a different formula of service. And slowly they moved on. Suddenly it was just me working in a practice, a nurse, and even the admin staff. At some point I had to call my wife, who has no medical experience being a vet, to just come and man the reception desk so I could see patients. So we really hit rock bottom there. Then COVID hit, and everyone was like, let's do telehealth and, close the doors because of health risks, That's not the kind of medicine I practice. And I was like, I need to be true to myself. I just opened the doors, business as usual, hit the ground running, because that's the time we are needed. And it paid off. It gave us more traction. We reached out to the school, our colleagues at John Hunter and all, saying, look, if you all need vaccines, if you all are sick, just come through the doors, we'll sort it out. And we took initiative, and no regrets there as well. And rest was history. Suddenly new doctors joined in, and I ended up buying the building, which I had to take the lease on. So I ended up buying the practice under my super kind of thing. And then a year into it, got permission from council to renovate the thing, and use Skelton, phenomenal company, to do the renovations. And what we believe is you create the space and they come. Now I've got 5 full-time doctors, 3 more joining in January, got admin staff which are still evolving. The challenges we are finding now is finding the admin staff with the growth mindset. Because most of the people we employed initially wanted security and certainty, which when you're growing, that's a bit hard. And I believe in the gut, and it's hard to explain. So even when we invest in property or anything else or whatever we do, it's that little voice that speaks to us just for a split second. I listen to it very carefully and go with it. It doesn't make financial sense or anything else. It's hard to give clarity and explain to someone else. And luckily, my wife, after years of convincing, believes in my gut. So if she says, she's like, yep, what does your gut tell you? I'm like, this is what we are doing. She's like, let's go for it.
We won't go into marriage counselling. But I mean, you've done wonders there, because you shut me up for quite a long time with that intro. But because I think it's an amazing story, and the things that shine through for me there is, the amount of adversity I guess you've had to overcome. These days we might get, something quite minor happen, and we think the heavens are falling in, but you've had some serious things that's probably pushed you certain directions, and it's turned out, which is wonderful to see. Talking about when you talk about change, and obviously you've had a lot of it, but how you deal with change and how you've dealt with it previously, but then also I guess, modern day in your own business, how you apply that mentality to help others deal with change.
So, by now you'd have gathered there has been a lot of setbacks and failures. And now, with my parents' background, this is where childhood comes into play. We always sat down for dinner together, and we always had, even at 11, 12, with a really watered down glass of scotch, just to be in his presence, and we have. He was always humble and generous, but he was a well-known cardiothoracic surgeon. And when someone comes for help, kind of thing, and there used to be wardsmen who struggled, and they'll come and say, Doc, we're struggling a bit, and he'll give his whole paycheck. They could be drinking with this money. Why are you doing this? And he said something interesting, like, Ravi, your role is not to give them restrictions on what they're going to do with what you give them. You're there to help. And the other thing he said was, if they have to ask you for help, you've already missed the bus. You should have offered before that. And that always plays in my head. So even with my kids, even with anyone around, always offer first before you're asked. And that resonates with what I'm doing as a clinician. So the key thing here is opportunities are always coming. Just jump and take it. Don't overthink it. Because as soon as we start thinking, that's when we start creating obstacles and walls. Suddenly we have created our own barriers. And then we convince ourselves we are not able to do it. And luckily for me, I don't do a lot of thinking. I just do it.
You might be more a psychologist than just a general practitioner. So I guess, that takes a lot of reinforcement, I guess, as well, because, I gather a lot of people haven't had probably your relationship with your parents. A lot of people haven't had your upbringing, etc. So how do you play that out when you talk with your team, for argument's sake? How do you encourage that approach to change or that approach to opportunities?
Brutal honesty and being genuine. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't soften it. Speak from the... Everyone recognizes pain and genuine. Don't have to sell it. So when they know what your intention is, what's your true intention, they resonate with it. And if they don't, it's not for them. So, and always, put it out there, whether it's business, whether it's family dynamics, or even with the marriage or with friendship. No one's there to read your mind. So as soon as you open up and say, this is where we are at from a business point of view, these are the challenges, or this is what's at home, these are the challenges. There is always someone who has already gone through it, stumbled, climbed up, know the ups and downs of it, who is ready to help. And that way Newcastle's been phenomenal. As soon as you put it out there, you get unsolicited advice very quickly, and a lot of people step up to help. And it's an amazing community, and with everyone wants you to climb on each other's shoulders and do better. And that's gold. even the school we are in, you find, you get the people who polarize or resonate with you. The values are the same, coming together for that same reason. And someone can drive past our house or see us and just take a snapshot and make assumptions that, oh, these guys have it all. It's so smooth. Things just fall into their lap. There is a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of challenges and a lot of risk-taking and a hell of a lot of failure. But the best decisions I've ever made is when I'm face flat in the mud. And I would recommend it.
So let's talk about that. You know, like you have made a lot of sacrifice. Some as I said, forced and have put you in a bit of direction. Others are just your general choices. Which a lot of people
taking.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of I think too many people these days. They want this, that, and the other, but are not prepared to sacrifice. I mean, look at the current situation. Everyone's talking about how interest rates affect, but I mean, they're not prepared to sacrifice necessarily their eating out and all the rest of it. I'm making that trivial, I get it, but from your point of view, what's your approach to sacrifice to get ahead, and how you've applied that, throughout your years?
So this is what we tell our girls. We practice what we practice at home in business. If the choice is hard and painful, it's the right choice. So it has to hurt. If you're comfortable or if you're swimming between the flags, that's not progress. That's just playing it safe. And that's where majority lie. So even little habits, what we do, like how we train. If you get up at 5 or 4 o'clock and troubleshoot and then go train, you've done more than 90% of the rest of the population in Newcastle. And
well, probably world.
Yes. Yeah. So it has a compounding effect, but need to take the risk. And I'm proud to say the Stephen family does not do fear. We just don't. Just step in and bring it on.
And from that aspect, I mean, obviously, you started with your parents. I know you love conversations and your discussions on your walks and that sort of thing. I guess that dealing with that aspect, you say we don't do fear, but that's obviously helped from what you surround yourself with as well.
Proximity is important. Who you share your time and energy with is crucial, because they can inspire you and they can drag you down. So at the end of the day, we are all evolving, and now we have come to a juncture where the only currency we value is time. And who we spend it, what we do, we are very brutal about. And that's part of the evolution.
And I guess one of your first points you made when you're talking about your journey, and the marriage being on the brink, or the value of family. I mean, if anything, you've chosen life and chosen family, which many people that get into business, I hear it all the time. We want more money, we want a better lifestyle, we want more time, and then they get into business and none of the above. And you were finding that. So I guess that's a big aspect of what are you working for? Are you working? Well, as they say, are you working to live, or you're living to work?
Yes.
And then that sacrifice part means, well, what are you prepared to change or sacrifice, or and now to create that future?
So we always start with good intention, but I'm guilty as well. When we start a business, suddenly you find the ego at the front holding the wheel. And just be aware of it is important, because am I Ravi the business owner, or Ravi the GP, or Ravi the husband or Ravi the father. And that's when you think, now when you strip it out who you really are, layer by layer, and that's a hard conversation to have with yourself. And that's where the morning walks come in. When I walk, I'm like, this is the kind of things that go through my head. And one major advice I could give anyone who just, even if they don't have business background or any venture they get into, if you don't have a solid relationship at home with the partner, with the kids, invest the time and energy in them, you're not going to fly very far. Because if I have an argument with my wife or the challenge with my kids, trust me, the first 5 patients are going to get it big time.
Yeah, even the subconscious.
Yes, because I'm not bringing my A game. So I make sure that they are well supported, and that's the reason we are flourishing. The home front is solid. Yes, we have challenging conversations, but conversations are solution based. Same thing at work. When a problem comes through, you're like, yes, solution based conversation, and we don't leave the table without making a decision. Whether it's right or wrong, it's fine. Make a mistake, put our hand up very quickly and rectify it. And we keep moving. It's like I used to play rugby when I was in school.
Did you?
And same thing, rugby union, and same thing. It's always, think of it like a ruck. It's just momentary and keep moving. And it's phenomenal. The thing is, don't stop. As soon as you stop and keep watching and waiting for this perfect, clear path to walk kind of thing, you're waiting for someone else to lawnmower in front of you. That's not life. And you want a rugged path, because then shit, it's something you created.
No, that's a good point. Good point. So, talk about, we spoke before, a number of qualifications. Some of it's had to be, you've had to zip rather than zag and all the rest of it. But knowing you generally have a passion, I guess, and very curious around learning and growth and that sort of thing. What's some of the fundamentals for you around learning and growth, personally, but also as the business owner?
So what works for me is, yes, all that experience has come to my aid. When I was doing it, I didn't see this. But the fact that I've had so much surgical experience, had anesthetic, medical experience, worked in Maitland Hospital, Port Mac, Tari, John Hunter, Liverpool, so the whole spectrum, all that came to my aid where knowledge and skills are concerned. But the other thing is, the secret sauce is teaching. So when a patient comes in, or when I'm sitting with a colleague, I go into teaching mode. That reinforces that I know the fundamentals, as well as I'm treating them with the same caliber. And as soon as someone understands their disease process, their outcome, you have won their trust by just giving clarity. And that always works. And I'm really good artist, so I draw and show them diagrammatically the process. So it's good. It reinforces my knowledge as well. So I'm growing through it, and they're growing through it as well. And something new comes to the table, because they are investing their time in me, and I want to make sure I deliver more than what they expected, basically exceed their expectations every time.
So effectively, it's like, in a business sense, as much as they're patients and you're the doctor, it's still customer service, isn't it?
Yes. it's how you make them feel. It's like anything else. They only remember how they were made to feel. But it doesn't stop with me. I can have the most amazing consult, find cancer, find other issues with them, help them with their mental health and all. It has to be the rest of the team as well, living up to that. Because if someone in the team drops the ball from, the consult room to the reception desk and the follow-up, all that goes down the drain. So that's crucial.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. That's you've nailed that one. I guess then I'll come back to how you apply that then in business. But one other thing I'd like more from a trait point of view. I mean, I think people listening to this can see. I'll say kindness goes a long way. You're a very kind person and look out for people. I think in life and then in business. So tell me, how's that just come about, especially in the face of modern day where it is a rarity, I think. But also how you can win from that then in life and business.
So, yes, we want to treat staff as family, but that also they have to earn it. So, it's to sit at the table, yes, they need the qualities. We will go over and beyond to help even a stranger. That's in our DNA. And I do it because that's how I've been nurtured from childhood and my upbringing. And I love that. And it resonates with my purpose. Where the staff is concerned, it's finding the right people, because what challenges we found was the ones who had joined the team, but self-preservation was priority, did not stick for long. You have to be there for the person next to you. And how I do things is, even with my marriage or with my patients, with my staff, I always think, what's the kind of person I need to be to bring that quality out of them? If you go into any situation trying to mold everyone else to suit you, it's going to be a rude awakening. Mm-hmm. So it's...
Looking in the mirror.
Look in the mirror.
Mate, great answer. I think if we now talk about business, as you said, you did a lot of very specialist employment, but still in employment, and you've made that jump. You're saying going from being just the doctor to running a business of, let's call it doctoring, if that's a word. But what was some of the what goes through your mind? I know you've said just do it, but I'm sure years now gone by with a bit of experience and you've realised, well, we did all right. It's easier. When you're going to that jump, it can be quite scary. What was that experience like?
So this is where I said about when we start a business, like we all read, the first year is hard and majority of businesses fail. And it depends on the reason we start the business. Some people just hate their boss, so they want to, go on their own thinking it's so easy and don't realize that there's a few more wheels and cogs in there than you anticipate. But this is where it's having all that difficulties initially pays off in the long run, because there is enough people around and services around. So where from a medical practice to accounting firms, where you can reach out and say, look, I'm starting this, what's the infrastructure I need to set up, kind of thing. And from a business point of view, recruiting, there is enough people around and recommended. So they come to your aid at that time. But what I found was, initially, all I had was a well-paid job. and I could walk around saying I own a business. I didn't. All I did was have a roof over my head, paid the overheads, and called myself a business owner, but I was just a sole trader. But then putting that effort in, suddenly it expanded, and now we have so much staff in there, and we have grown phenomenal. Even from figures point of view, 300-400% increase in the first 2 years. 3 years it doubled, tripled, kind of thing. So, but it's never been a financial drive. I just enjoy what I do, and that's the key thing here. It's just enjoying the challenges, and this is what, even with the crew we walk with, I suddenly find that I'm addicted to the hustle, which is not a good thing. So always want to keep busy, troubleshooting, because you find purpose in that and feel like you're pushing forward. Trying to work towards slowing a bit down just to hear that inner voice guiding me, not just going for the next kill.
Well, it's a funny thing, and I think this is a big part of a business owner, but life, I guess, generally, that you can very quickly fall into that trap of comparisons and relativities, rather than sticking true to values and that sort of thing. And for me, in an advisory sense, we see that with business owners all the time. So I guess having that, whether it be counsel or having that, confidant to be able to bring you back to centre.
Yes. Yeah. Having a mentor is essential. It's like when we train, someone who has already been on that journey, who can get you from A to B efficiently with the shortest time. That's crucial. But the other thing what we have to remember is the people who brought you from A to B are not the same people who take you from B to C, depending on how far you're aiming. So that's when we need to bring new blood in at times, and set our expectations higher. And sometimes you might have to let people go as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. And nearly everyone that comes on, they're down to business, their importance, or one of the big drivers to their success, and whether that's been in business or sporting endeavours or leadership, whatever it may be, is mentors and multiple.
It's crucial. And that's a marriage in its own steam. And luckily for me, like even where my wife's concerned, we complement each other. So I'm the more emotionally driven. She sees the numbers and more strategic and protocol systems. I just go with the flow. So it's the gut. So we do have arguments on that. It's like the school event. We're like, the gut says it's good. She's like, are you kidding me? Let me see how they fared in the last 5 years. Gut is good. So it's the fact that I am able to reach out and bring her in as well is phenomenal, because it's where we can bounce ideas at the dining table. And something interesting, we include the kids as well. They're only 10 and 13. We include them in our business decisions. Who we keep, who we let go, why. Even the name of the practice, Shanara, my eldest daughter, only came up with it. I was going to call it Golden Circle. And they were like, it's not a James Bond movie, Dad. You always talk about the family circle, so why don't we name it that? That's how it came about.
Yeah, right.
So I always include them because they need to see how much work goes behind the scenes. And they need
that work ethic piece.
Yes, and see the work ethic and the sweat behind all this. Because otherwise they think the comforts just come without the hard work.
Well, that's right. And there's that value of money.
Value of money as well. It's leading by example as well, because they have to see you work. It's no point saying, look, I'm working 3 days a week and comfortable and all that. No, just
and I think
roll up the sleeves and
I think that applies directly to your team in business too.
Yes.
You can sit in your ivory tower, or you can actually set the standard and lead by example and have others follow.
And you hit the nail on the head. The fact that I worked 7 days a week and I'm the first to arrive and the last to leave, and this is how it came to be. Even when I initially got the practice, I used to stay back, finish the last patient, clean up the practice, put everything away, clean the bathrooms, all that, close up. And the wife will call, practice closed at 6. You're there till 8:30, 9. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm just cleaning up for the next day. That's the kind of background it was, and it all paid up. You have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Can't. And this is the other hard conversation we have at home. We call the tipping point. When you get kicked in the guts and you think it really hurts, you're going to get it kicked again. Because and that's when you know you're closer to where you're supposed to be and you're almost there. Because you come to a point where you really want to tap out. When the wife's like, why are you doing this? It's not worth it. The time's not, you need to be prioritizing us and all that. And like, hang on. That means you're really close. And it pays off just sticking with it kind of thing. But that's where family support comes in, the friends you're with comes into play, and being genuine and having the right staff around you as well. But the key thing is gratitude. Always found that's always been the driving force. When you wake up, you're like, damn, there are so much we can be grateful for. Like when we walk, not everyone can, live in Newcastle next to the beach and train and then go to an awesome school, have a good set of friends and kids flourishing, good health and just even amazing relationships at home and around.
You make a lot of sense, mate. Probably too much sense. So as a business owner, we're going to really get down to your business now. You've mentioned a lot on some of the things you practice, probably soft skills type and that sort of thing. What are some of more from really the operational sense? I know you said your wife's probably more into the numbers and the like, but what are some of the habits or rules for what you deem success?
So, from a medical practice point of view, having a clarity in roles is important. So, how we do it is anything clinical, the staff come to me. Anything non-clinical goes to my practice manager and then to my wife, who is the business manager. So they know they are well supported there.
So really playing the strengths as well.
Yes. And frequent meetings are essential, which we are now being more proactive about, because most of the time we think someone else knows what's our agenda and what our strategy is. And that this is that surgical background of you put your hand out and the nurse knows exactly what instrument has to come into your hand. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
So it's worth having it, even if it's 5-10 minutes, saying this is what we want. And it has to be outcome based, which is a different way of looking at it. It's like when I park the car and go to train with the boys, I'm like, what's the outcome I want in this hour? Well, I'm going to give it my all, push myself compared to what I did yesterday. Same thing when you walk into work. What's the outcome I want for the day? Where I can exceed not only my patients' expectations, but my staff's expectation, where I can support them a bit more, listen to them, which is hard because most of the time we listen to respond, not listen to understand. And that's a hard bit I've found as well, because the solution comes like that by just giving a bit of extra minute to see where they're coming from. That is, I find it challenging.
Yeah, right. No, I think, well, I mean, and I think that's a hard one for a lot of people, natural leaders, you know, and especially, you know, whilst you're in, you're a doctor, but you're in the game of giving advice. It's just advice in the medical field. It's hard to pull yourself back sometimes rather than solve.
That's true. But like I said, it's from a business point of view, structure is important, and some people might feel like, oh, it's micromanaging or there's so many rules, but there is a reason for it, because then there is accountability, and especially not only in my field or any field, where you can trace it back and learn from it. And you want staff even where if there is a mistake, they have no fear, where they can put their hand up and say, look, I've stuffed this up, let's fix it together. So everyone learns from it, and it's easier to deal with when it's at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So talking about that, where there might be mistakes, what's your, or one of your biggest mistakes and or learning?
So the biggest mistakes is, like I said, there's a lot, but putting the business first before family and health. Because at some stage in my life, the ego was at the front wheel, big time. Loved the adrenaline rush, loved the hustle and the growth and the significance that came with it. And then, like what you said earlier, why am I doing this? And yes, I love what I'm doing, but I could still be not a business owner and still do it. And then I realized kids are growing older, and suddenly I come home and look at the wife and like, there might be nothing in common here. What's life about? And it's, so that's when we had the conversation, and this is where a mentor is useful, because they can give you a bird's eye view to grow in all aspects. Because sometimes when you're too close to it, you don't see the damage you're doing in the sides. So where someone can say, look, you can't have all the burners running, and most of the time it's the relationship at home, the burner we drop down and prioritize because we feel they are more forgiving and they can absorb more. Not all the time, because from an accounts point of view, think of it this way. It's like an emotional bank account. Keep withdrawing.
Nothing left.
You're going to come to a point you're over withdrawn, and then the kids don't want to spend time with you, or the wife has nothing in common with you. And even if you make a mistake, there is no positive deposit there. So this is like become the person you have to be for them to love you, respect you, and want to be with you.
Mate, it's a very, very, well, I guess somewhat obvious point you make, but very, very hard for many to select and achieve. So thanks for that. If you haven't told us already, best advice you've ever received?
This is from my wife. Grow a pair of balls and just do it.
Very good.
So, when I come and talk about the gut or any decisions, like, just get on with it. So and then just the solutions keep coming and the resources keep flooding in.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one. Like, mindset is a massive part of success in well, not just in my view and what we see with people day in, day out. I think, making sure you've got, as you said, mentors, counsel, etc., putting enough framework around you so that it's not risk everything, but at some point you've got to make the decision.
Risk everything because it's worth it. All the chips have to go. If you hold it, that means you're not in it totally. That's how we roll at home. All the chips are in. There isn't a fragment left because otherwise you're not committed enough. That's how it works for us.
All right. There'll be some people shaking there right now. I'm going to wrap up. I mean, mate, this has been exceptional. I knew it would be. We had a lot of chats over time, but for viewers to really, a bit different this one, and not giving you all the, ins and outs of running a business, but more some of the approach and mindset and philosophy, which I think is very important from a business owner's point of view. But I'm just going to try and capture a few things, like, the importance of choosing family in life and the importance of having that right as your foundation so you can be better in your business. If you're sitting there as a business owner and that may be your intent, but it's not getting there, well, that may be something to look at. As we said about mindset, the power of, belief and positivity, and that's massive. If you're looking at things a certain way that is in a positive headspace, or at least a can-do headspace, you're more likely to achieve it rather than not. No replacement for work ethic and initiative, as you said, and then sometimes that means going against the grain. As you said, the COVID experience, that was a good one. Setbacks and failures. We've said it before in this down to business, but if you are taking risks, you are going to have things that go wrong, but they're learning opportunities as well. So making sure you reflect on that and how we can apply it different next time or better, and don't overthink opportunities. I love how you said sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We put walls up and take those opportunities away. Getting the best out of your people and dealing with change, really that brutal honesty in a genuine and authentic way, and then I think people can see that. I think that's a great one. And share your thoughts, what's in your mind. People aren't mind readers, so share your thoughts and see what comes back. Don't hold it back all the time. You said the right choice, and I think we ended that way in your best advice. We're saying the right choice is hard and painful, and lean into it. That's probably the most, the thing there to look at. Are we taking the easy road, or are we taking something a bit more challenging? And who you spend your time with, the way you described it was proximity, is important. I thought it was a very good way of looking at it. Time is our most precious and valuable and probably limited resource, and how are we applying it? When we look at, how you get your learning, teaching someone reinforces the learning. That's a really good way of putting it. I think, from a business owner's point of view, if you're investing in your team or in yourself and you're going on a course, etc., what are you bringing back to the team and reinforcing that message? Trust comes from clarity. Very good one. You talk more about in your relationships with patients and staff, but I think, even from the sense of, ownership or stakeholders, etc., the more clarity you can provide, clarity, I'd say, creates confidence, and confidence creates trust. That's not a bad way of looking at it. Consistency across the whole of the team, not just if you're delivering a great experience, as you said, what we call customer service or customer experience, you can do a great thing, but as soon as they go, it's the rest of your team. If it's not right, it could all fall over. So that requires probably some training and setting some standards and protocols around what our expectations are. Enjoy what you do. It's pretty obvious, but how many people are sitting when they're watching this, or just people that don't enjoy what they do? And I don't think you're ever going to reach the heights of what you can if you don't enjoy what you do. The importance of mentors come comes up every time, the importance of mentors, counsel, the people you surround yourself with, and sometimes that requires change. Mentors won't be there for your life. They might become friends, but having people constantly challenge you and push you further than what you probably would have gone yourself. Gut is good. We might get that one tattooed somewhere, but gut is good. Sometimes we can have all the analytics and that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, you've got to make the decision, and generally that intuition, I guess, is the main thing that you're working from. Key things about in the business, the two main points I pulled out of there that I think is extremely important: knowing your strengths and therefore what roles you should be playing. Make sure we all within the team understand who's doing what and how we actually complement each other to achieve the result. And the best one out of that team conversation, well, maybe not the best, but one that really resonated, was listen to understand rather than listen to respond. I probably use that one at home a fair bit more too, quietly. But mate, look, that was sensational. Hopefully people got a lot out of that one, and we can probably keep talking. But you've had a very, very interesting life. I love these chats, and I thank you on joining us today on Down to Business. Looking for a great doctor or a great GP, Family Circle over there at Hamilton. Mate, thanks very much. And,
it's been a pleasure. And thank you. Thank you for having me.
And until next time, here's cheers.